Thank you. Thank you. Hey, I am Phil Freo. I am currently head of product and engineering at Close.io. So we're talking about growing engineering teams. So quick show of hands, anyone who has never hired any engineers before? All right. Oh, wow, lots. And then never more than, say, 10? And then never more than, say, 20? Okay. If you haven't raised your hand at all, you should probably come up and give this talk instead of me, or leave. But anyway, I'm sharing based on my experience. There's lots I don't know, lots I'm still learning, but just basically this is some of my experience. And then also show of hands for anyone who either has any remote employees or is interested in potentially hiring anyone remotely. Awesome. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So I'll basically be sharing, some mistakes that we made along the way, what's worked well for us, things like that, and we'll try to leave some time for Q&A. So yeah, basically frameworks for scaling from 2 to 20, how, when, who to find the right people for your stage, how to structure the hiring process, distributed remote work, and mistakes that we made along the way. That's kind of the goal here. So a little bit about me and Close.io. So Close.io is an inside sales CRM for startups and SMBs. So we're a B2B SaaS tool. We are now about 30 people, and we're all remote, so we don't have any central office. And we are actually profitable, and we're on the self-funded track, which is kind of rare. And so for me, it's personally been a really fun journey. I'm actually came in as engineer, employee number one kind of thing. And I've been around kind of from the first lines of code to bringing us now to thousands of happy customers, which has been a lot of fun. I've gotten to grow our engineering team and product team from 2 to 14. And then I've also been around, so we didn't start out as an all remote company. We started out actually all in person in Palo Alto. And so I've kind of been around for the transition from all in person to all remote, which has also been interesting. This group of 6 of us, this was Close.io for the first 2 or 3 years. This is basically what we looked like. We were in the Bay Area. We were really small. This is the team now. This is what we looked like at the last team retreat. Not everyone can make it, so we try to make them feel included with the big cardboard bubbles. But actually, this is how I most normally see everyone on Zoom video chats, async, from all over the world. So this is kind of my most common interaction with people. And so to talk about hiring, just first of all, I think it's just important to recognize and realize hiring is hard. It's always hard. It's gonna be hard. That's just the first thing to remember. And it's hard for everybody. Nobody has a really easy time hiring, at least nobody that I've found. So we're gonna talk about when, who, and how to hire. So starting with when to hire. There's really just 2 simple rules, and if you do them, then you'll hire at the right time. First rule, don't hire too early. Why not hire too early? One, hiring is really, really hard. It's really slow. It's painful. Seriously, you do not want to hire anybody. Second of all, people are really expensive. You will spend a lot of money on them. They'll be, basically your entire budget. They need a lot of attention. They need management. They have problems. They're messy. It's not like code. So it's hard. They're expensive in time and money. And then the next thing is, I'd say really good advice to do the job first yourself that you're trying to hire for. So be busy, learn all the things, do all the things. And this will actually help you better understand the role that you really need and what it really takes to do that job well. And so when it's time to hire for a particular role, if you've been able to do it yourself, even if you're not the greatest at it, you'll be better off hiring the right person because you know that role a little bit better. Another reason not to hire too early is that small is fast and nimble. No matter how much you try to avoid it, the more your team grows, you just won't be able to move as quickly per person. You'll have a lot more communication overhead. These things are just inevitable. And then finally, just focus at first on what matters. Before you have to go hire a big engineering team, can be a huge distraction from what actually matters in your company, which is building a product that people love, getting customers, proving your idea works, things like that. So kind of with these last 2 points in mind, at Close.io, we actually had a 3-person product and engineering team when we got to company profitability within 1 year, and we hit a few million in ARR with 3 people doing everything from UI design through server DevOps kind of stuff. So don't hire too early. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2, don't hire too late. So really easy. Again, why? Same thing, because hiring is a really hard, slow, painful process. So if you put off hiring for too long, and then by the time you finally get around to starting it, and you realize how hard and how slow it is, it's going to take you even longer than you realize. So so don't hire too early, don't hire too late. We actually started, one of our biggest mistakes was we hired too late. And so not only did we really start hiring too late, once we said that we were ready to start hiring, we didn't really give it, I would say, full effort, because we weren't even totally convinced that we should, or we just didn't really feel like it. It wasn't the most fun thing to do. We liked building product. We liked just adding customers. We liked our sort of revenue per employee number, things like that. So our mistake was that we hired too late, and then particularly once we really started hiring, it took us quite a while before we were very serious about hiring. So don't hire too early, don't hire too late. So when do I actually hire? I can't tell you that answer, but I would say, 1, wait till you just really need to. That's, I would say, when your processes are breaking, when things just aren't running the way that you really think they should be, and 2, when you have goals that you just know you can't meet until you have more people. And then whenever you do decide, don't wait any longer. Once it's time, it's got to be a number 1 priority. You really have to commit to it whenever you're doing it, and that I really mean that. Once we finally got serious about hiring, it took at least 50% of my time for many months until we started kind of ramping up the team. All right, who to hire? Only one simple rule for this one: aim high, don't settle. Very easy, right? So aim high. You want senior people. This is obvious, but junior people, there's a lot more of them. They're cheaper, and they actually can be. Junior people can be really great long term as an asset, but it takes often years for them to get where you want them to go. Time you probably don't have. So just try to find the best people you can. Leadership potential is what you also want. These, especially the first few people, are people that should be able to grow into leadership kind of roles, and particularly just even if you never expect them to lead entire teams, you just don't have time to hire people that need a lot of management. You need people that you can just kind of unleash on big problems, and they can just go work on them. And then finally, people should just wow you. A good kind of question to keep in the back of your mind every time you're talking to somebody as a potential hire, could I learn from this person? Is there something, is this just a person who knows how to code, or am I really impressed by this person? And that's what you really want to look for. And so don't settle. The temptation is strong. It happens every single role that I try to fill. Somewhere around a dozen mediocre interviews or so, you start to kind of question, am I being too strict? We just need somebody to help on this project. Just don't. Just resist. It happens every time. Just try not to do that. Keep your standards high. Good people are out there. Another kind of form of this is if somebody is a maybe in your mind, maybe they're good enough. Just the answer is a no. You just have to get there quickly. And then just also keeping in mind, hiring the wrong people, it's very bad. It slows you down worse than if you never had hired at all. It's the people you hire set the pace for the future people that you hire, things like that. So don't settle. And then particularly the first few hires on the team, I would say are both the hardest to fill and the most important. So if you're just going from founders to first few engineers, they're hard to fill because it's actually like hard to attract the first few people to your company. Your very beginnings of companies barely look like jobs to most regular people. Like it's actually hard to convince somebody that your office, your apartment, home office, or whatever is a real job. Or think about will my mom think this is a job kind of test? Often candidates go through this. The reality is it's hard to a lot of people just don't get what you're doing until they see a little bit more structure in the company, a few more people where they can interview with other peers at their level, not just the founders. So at the end of the day, just most people aren't actually a good fit for a very early stage startup. And it'll be for a variety of reasons like that. We've made offers to people in the very early days at Quizlet, for example, where the person's mom just thought that they should have a more stable job at a bigger company, and they went with that. That's not a joke. So it's okay. You're not looking to hire everybody. But just realize the first positions are the hardest to fill, but they're also the most important. They will set the caliber for your future hires, and the people you first hire, they will, or at least they should, be able to become leaders in your team. So who to hire? So for us, what probably the simplest way I've described who we've hired is I've always just tried to find the bottlenecks in our team and our development process. So in the very early days that we hired, and our team was, and the first couple of people we hired, I would say were full stack, able to go deep in certain areas, but especially wide across various areas, touching different parts of the stack, for example. As the team grew, we really needed more specialists, and so for us, that looked like we started to have some kind of real server issues. We needed infrastructure, DevOps kind of help, and then we hired for that, and we built a team for that, and they took it over, and it was awesome. And then that was no longer our bottleneck. And then it was hey, we have all these features, but the front end development, I was the only one doing it at the time. It was this is just not working. We have front end bottleneck. We have to hire front end people, so we hired a little front end team. And that was no longer the bottleneck, and it was great. And then, hey, we have all this stuff, but nobody's really designing it. Designs the bottleneck. Then back end, and then recently for us, we hired our first product manager because for the first time, it felt like product management and kind of getting out ahead of what we were needing to build was the biggest part of our process bottleneck than ever before. So find your bottlenecks. Tap your network first. Who are the best people that you know? Who are the best people that they know? Get referrals. So you can get referrals from different places. Internal employee referrals are great. If you hire somebody new, one of the first things you should ask them is who are all the great people that you know? A general trick for getting good referrals from people, whether they work for you or whether it's just people that you guys know, is ask people who are the best people that you know who probably aren't looking for a new job. Because everybody who's really good isn't, searching for months for a new job. They have tons of opportunities. They've always got something that they could be doing. So, you want to find those people that are just really impressive that, nobody thinks they're looking for a job, but in reality, you could potentially get them. And then I would say...
How do you juggle that with setting the tone of the culture and diversity in your company being so important in the first 10 people, right? If you're a bunch of white cis guys, and your network is all these white cis guys, and now suddenly you've got 10 or 20 people at your company that all look like that, it's almost impossible to hire anyone else. Yeah,
so it's a really good point. I think that is the downside if your network is very not diverse. Obviously, if you have a diverse network, that's great. Then that makes it really easy. If you don't, I think network is one of the several things we should be doing. If your network isn't diverse, then that's certainly not enough. And in reality, your network is one of the networking is kind of one part of it, but then there's 6 other things that we'll talk about where hopefully if your network isn't diverse enough that you can find other sources of candidates who are. So a mistake that we made as well at first was kind of focusing only on the technical qualifications. So just doing hard interview questions, just really focusing on their technical experience. But you really do need to consider, it sounds obvious in hindsight, but like when you're actually interviewing people, it's easy to forget this kind of stuff. You need to consider culture. Are they good at communication, written and spoken? Just their general attitude toward work, their work-life balance, how senior are they, things like that. Another kind of point is like startup IQ. So somebody who's been, a really great engineer at Google for the last 8 years may or may not actually have what it takes to be the, employee number one at a startup if they've, I'm overgeneralizing, but the point is certain candidates, they may be really great programmers, but if they don't kind of get startups or they don't really, they're not interested in wearing a lot of hats or something like that, they just may not be the right fit. So overall, look at a lot more than just like how technically competent somebody is when you think about who you want to hire. All right, so how to hire. So there are 6 simple steps. Actually, these steps are pretty obvious, so I'm just going to be sharing like a few tips for each of them. So prep work, sourcing, screening, interviews, offer, onboarding, and beyond. These steps aren't a surprise to anybody. Every company does them, but I'll just try to share what works. But even before that, I like to think about how do you stand out among all of those companies that are doing these 6 steps. Every company is. So what makes you unique? So really, like, 2 things to start with, like make the whole process fun and respectful. So be respectful, get back to people quickly. People really appreciate when you tell them you're going to get back to them within 2 or 3 days, and then you actually do that. It's surprising, but most companies don't actually get back with either a yes or a no. It's very common to just leave candidates hanging in the industry, and if you can get back to people quickly, they really respect that. Your goal is that every interaction you have with a candidate should be basically impressed by you and feel respected. Your goal is that declined candidates, people that you specifically have told you don't want them to work for you, they should still walk away impressed with your company, wanting to tell their friends that it was a good experience, things like that. And some people that we've declined for a role, they have ended up telling their friends who we actually thought were a good fit for the role. So, bad people have good friends often. So, make it fun. Try to have interesting interview questions. One sort of trick you can do that with is just use a consistent theme throughout, so that you're not just asking 10 unrelated questions to each other, but build up on each other and ask kind of deeper and deeper questions about the same sort of thing. How to make something fun, that's sort of an exercise to the reader, but just try to think about it like that. Help them learn about your company along the way. So I'll just give one example of what we do like that. In addition to just telling people about the company during the interviews, one nice thing we do is during the application, whenever they submit their application, I'll show you in another slide, but we have people do an HTTP post of JSON to a specific endpoint, and then they have to do that as part of their application, and then the response that they get back in JSON also includes a bunch of links to specific technical posts that we've written, trying to make things a little bit fun along the way for them, as opposed to just a generic job application. Play to your strengths. That's kind of the third tip. So something is unique about your company. Are you an all-remote team? Are you using cutting-edge technology? Are you working in virtual reality? Are you able to pay really high salaries? Are you starting a new product from scratch and you get to write a bunch of greenfield code versus maintaining something? Whatever it is, just take that and really own it and sell it, and you have to stand out somehow. And so whatever is unique to you, play to your strengths. All right, so step 1, prep work. So plan your process. Who are you really looking for? And one trick here, or just thing to keep in mind, is you and your other co-founders or team members, you guys all may have a little bit of a different idea of who you're looking for. And so step 1 is actually just get alignment on who you're really looking for. And also plan your interview process up front. It's really easy to like, okay, hey, we need to start recruiting. Hey, okay, let's try. We've got a couple candidates that might be interested. Let me like start interviewing them. But if you don't actually have your interview process planned, it's easy to start taking shortcuts to judge different people differently, to not have a consistent process. So the screenshot on the right is an outline of. I did a new role recently, and I wrote out a whole doc ahead of time with these different sections. So, why are we hiring a new role? The actual job description itself, which talks about us, talks about the candidate, what they'll do, where and how we would promote the job post, what the interview process would actually be, what the application questions would be, what we would ask on the different calls, what a take-home project would look like, and then what their onboarding plan would look like. So I did that all up front before I talked to any candidates. And that made the whole process flow much more smoothly. This is sort of the opposite of what I used to do, which is just like start talking to people and then we'll figure out what call 2 looks like after we've done call 1. And so when you write your job description, be sure to sell your company and the role. Be specific about what they'll actually be doing. So I like having a section that's like, you'll do projects like ... and give them 8 example projects that they may actually work on. And then take your job description that you've written and share it with anyone who you think is really great at that role, like your ideal person that you can never hire. Just send it to them, ask them for feedback. What would they change about the role? And usually you'll tweak a couple things. All right, step 2, sourcing. So outbound, inbound, realistically, you should be doing a little bit of both. One thing to keep in mind there is that you need to treat outbound candidates and inbound candidates a little bit differently. So with inbound candidates, they're applying to your job. You put them through your whole process. With outbound candidates, you're reaching out to them. You're saying, hey, I think you may be a good fit. Like, it may be somebody this goes with the network. But you have to do a lot more selling up front. And then eventually, it sort of toward the end of the process, it looks more similar to the inbound process, but it definitely starts out different. Your network, I would say both directly reaching out to people also just blasting your social media. You have more, distant connections on Twitter or Facebook or whatever than you probably realize. I'll give a little example here. So this was a tweet I put out when we were looking for our first product manager a few months ago, and nobody, I'm sure some people clicked the link and applied, but also what happened in one case for me was somebody liked the tweet. The very first person that liked the tweet, I looked at who it was. I didn't really know him, but we had some mutual connections, but I saw he did product at another startup that I thought was kind of impressive. And so I didn't just say, oh, cool, he liked my tweet. I actually did send him a direct message, and I don't remember exactly what I said, but I just asked him probably if he knew anyone that might be interested or whatever. And basically, long story short, we hired that guy. That's our product manager. Came sort of a combination of my network, sort of a combination of outbound, but you really just have to put yourself out there. So job boards are probably definitely the place we get most of our candidates from. And so the trick there is to make them as targeted as possible. So first of all, if you're advertising all of your roles on the same job board or job boards, you're doing it wrong. So job boards in general are the easiest solution to finding candidates because you just pay $300 and you have your job board up and you start getting candidates to come in. You may not find your highest quality candidates on average from job boards, but it's a good way to get quantity. And then targeted communities, so this is kind of similar to job boards where the more targeted the better. So what I mean by that is Slack groups, newsletters, specific websites that post content about a specific area of technology. So when we hire a front-end developer, we advertise on CodePen or front-end developer newsletter weekly email news list or front-end developer Slack group. We don't just put everything on Glassdoor or Indeed or whatever. the targeted, like your targeted advertisements can also, so it can be industry related, it can be tech related, or it can be location related. So we do a lot of hiring on remote job sites. So we work remotely.com, remoteok.io, remotive.io. So anyway, most important point, out of probably all of the sourcing is just try to go where the people that you think are really good at this role hang out. Try to post in those places. Matching sites. So this is kind of another useful place. This is sort of the kind of in between inbound and outbound. So these are sites like AngelList or A-List, Hired, TripleByte. These are places where candidates, sometimes they're pre-screened, but they have profiles, but they're specifically looking for jobs, and then you have a company profile, and then either the site matches you up, or you can kind of go on there and look at kind of like pre-screened candidates. So it's kind of like warm outbound. These can be helpful. Recruiters, I don't have anything. I haven't worked with many myself. There are a lot of bad ones out there. If you know a really good one, then great. I'd say be careful about how they're repping your company. Be careful about the kind of emails they're sending. Just kind of don't just having recruiters is not just a solution that you can just kind of have off to the side and ignore. Just make sure you know what they're doing. Another source of targeted outbound for us has been GitHub contributors to either our open source projects or like other niche projects that we work with. So somebody opens a great pull request on your repo, then like reach out to them. Hey, you probably have a job now, but like let's talk. So that's been good.
Quick question: is there any like priorities you would assign to doing those different things?
You always have to do your network. If you can hire people just from your network, those might be the best people. Like that's generally where I would say start. We get most of our candidates, most of our flow through job boards. So that's probably like the second thing. I go to the targeted outbound whenever I feel like the quality of my job board candidates or my targeted community kind of outreach. Job boards, targeted communities, I kind of lump these into as like advertising. I go to the matching sites or the targeted outbound only when the quality of the other just isn't where I want it to be. When you find somebody that you really want to work with, never stop following up. This is basically the same thing as sales. So this screenshot is an example of an email thread from me to a guy named Casey, who I knew from a few years back as a really great, at the time he was a front-end developer, then he turned into doing full stack back-end stuff as well. But at one point I was looking for a front-end developer in 2016, and I emailed him, and he emailed me back, and emailed him again 4 months later, and he emailed me back, and then I emailed him again, a few months after that. He still, all this time, had a job, was super happy. This isn't somebody I had no connection with. I knew him loosely, but I checked in every few months. He letting him know what's new in our company. We launched some big feature. Here's a new open source project we just released. Things like that. How are things going with you? All the way down, several months, checking in, and then if you notice at this very bottom one, like probably a year and a half or more later, application submitted, and then we hired him, and now he's doing great. So this only happened because followed up for many months. If you want more about this blog post is one our CEO wrote. It actually goes into how both myself and another one of people at Close.io. He actually followed up with us for like 2 years before we joined. So startup hiring, following up, just never stop following up. Screening. So this is kind of like people start applying. How do you screen out the good from the bad? This is especially important in remote roles. And in remote roles, you get way more applicants. And so having a kind of an efficient process to screen is helpful. So first of all, use an applicant tracking system, Breezy, HR, Workable, Lever, something that's actually made for doing this so that it will make your life easier. And you're really looking to try to like find signal from all the noise of all the candidates. So one of the best things that helps us do this is having a customized application form. So the formatting's not great, but you can see the basics are, so we have them send the HTTP post using JSON to a certain endpoint. This, like just doing something like this, it weeds out, I don't know what percentage, but a huge percentage of people that just go online and upload their resume to 1,000 places and don't care about the positions or anything. So we make them do some extra effort. Anyone who is interested, it doesn't take more than a couple minutes to do this kind of stuff, and it can be a little fun. It's like a slight technical challenge. So we try to put things like this in here to make it fun and to help weed out people that aren't really qualified. So this is the second question is we send them to some link. It's got a little technical problem. They just have to put in their little solution. The solutions are like one-liners. We're not looking for anything elaborate here, but something that you have to actually know what you're talking about, or else your application is not even going to get through. Or if you just type gibberish in the box, then like we'll just instantly reject you whenever we look at it. And so having questions like this turns the screening process, like within seconds of looking at an application, you can get a feel for whether they like put in basically the correct answer or not. And then the third thing that I look for here is some kind of just general written communication. So like we have plain English, like paragraph style questions, like what are the benefits or drawbacks that containerization technologies have brought to the field of DevOps? That's just an example question. But the point is we're looking for people that can communicate written very well. Especially as a remote team, that matters a lot for us, but I think probably matters to everybody. And then when you're screening, so when I'm screening, I'm looking at the screener questions, I'm looking for their general written communication, like including their cover letter, and then their actual experience with their resume. Yeah, so, and we get really good feedback about this. So it's a little bit of extra work, but it's, people like being challenged when you're doing job search, like something that's a little bit more fun. We've gotten really good feedback on. So this is just an example flow of an interview process. So once you've screened somebody, phone screen, 30 to 60 minutes, you need to get really good at phone screens because if you spend way too much time talking to somebody who's not a good fit, you're gonna just be like spending all your time in the wrong part of the funnel of recruiting. And so try to get some really good questions that quickly get you to a no. Like that's kind of your goal on a phone screen, is get you to a no as quickly as possible. So for me, I just try to discuss something like one level deeper than whatever frameworks they're probably working with. So like in front-end development, you have all these React people who use their kind of front-end frameworks, but they don't like necessarily know what they're talking about if you go one level deeper into the raw like DOM. Or in back-end land, maybe their frameworks take care of SQL injection normally, so do they actually know how that works under the hood? Something like that. But the point is just get to ask quick questions that somebody who's good should be able to answer in a sentence. Somebody who's bad will stumble through, and if they do a couple of those, you can just end the call early. Coderpad.io is really nice for just a quick online collaborative coding thing where it's just very quick. Can they code? So we don't try to do like hard, elaborate, high pressure coding and like questions live, because that's not typically how people code, but we do have them write some code, something really simple. Can they actually code? Let me watch you do it. And so Coderpad is good for that. So if you have, say, technical interview 1, that's where I start to get into kind of longer, more in-depth technical questions, architectural questions. We often do a take-home project where that's where we actually want to see somebody build something, write some significant amount of code. So there's definitely some wrong ways to do this. A wrong way is like have them work on a project that you actually want to use in production. That's bad. Another kind of important thing is to like tell them that you're time boxing it. So tell them to only spend 2 or 3 hours on it, something like that. That way the person who has like a week of free time isn't being rewarded more than the person who only can, give you a couple hours. This can be, it's good if you try to make these projects fun. It can be a generic kind of problem that's not related to your company, or it can be something that you've already built and shipped, and they can see that you've already shipped it. That way they know you're that way you give them sort of a real problem, but they also know you're not like stealing their work. Technical interview number 2, in whatever the last interview is, I just try to make sure we drill in on any missing technical areas that we kind of missed or that seemed weaker in the first place. And then I also make sure we try to evaluate those like softer skills or just general experience, general seniority. Would this person be the person to lead our engineering team in the future? Things like that. Best interviews feel like a dialogue, not just a list of questions. So best if you can kind of play off of each other. You don't have to stick purely with your interview script. If they bring up something about their experience, it's great to ask them more questions about it. Let them ask you questions. Remember to sell. The best people have a lot of opportunities out there. So what are you telling them about your company that makes them really want to work for you? So remember to sell. Let them ask good questions. If they don't have good questions, if they're not interested in something about your business, something about your product, it's actually probably not a very good sign. And then just gut check. Do you like them? Even if they get like a lot of the technical questions right, sleep on it, see how you feel about them in the morning. But, often the people that we've hired that haven't worked out have been the people that they did well technically, but there was just something about them that we felt uncomfortable with during the interview process, and we tried to make it work, and then in reality, it just ultimately didn't work. And then interview notes, like have every interviewer take good notes and write up a summary afterwards. It's best if you can have people do this independently so that they're not kind of clouded by each other's feedback. So then moving on to the offer. Number 1, do reference checks. One of our worst hires ever was somebody that if we had done reference checks, I'm pretty confident we would have figured out that we would not have hired them. Do reference checks, great people. It will not be hard for them to give you several people that you could talk to that will go on and on about them for 20 minutes or more, telling you how great they are, like a very common theme in good people for reference checks is the person will still want to try to hire them, or like they'll be actively trying to hire them, but they'll still be willing to give them a good reference check, or they'll say, if I could hire them again, I would, things like that. Make the offer. You have to sell the offer. Good people have multiple offers, multiple opportunities. So we try to sell the growth opportunity. We try to sell how much they're going to learn. We try to sell how good our team is. Things other than just the dollar amount, which if you're a startup, you may not be able to compete with other companies as much. Close the offer. This goes along with selling the offer, but you got to close the offer. One little sales tip is it's called the soft close or the trial close. It's kind of like if you're going back and forth on numbers, or if they're pushing for a higher salary or something, but you're just not there yet. You're just not closed with them. One thing that can help is, if we were able to come up $5,000 more on your offer, if we were able to give you that extra week of vacation, or if you became confident that our product was actually the right product market fit, or if you learned more about our team and you liked the people, then would you be sold? Is it a done deal? If you can get them to sort of imagine saying yes, if you can get them to sort of agree without the commitment, then you sort of know what it's going to take to get you over the finish line with the candidate. And then full-time versus contract or trial period. So if you can set up a time, like a month or a few weeks or whatever, to do a paid contract, sort of no commitment trial period with somebody, that's a really good way to see if somebody's a good fit. So you can sell it as, we just want to see if we're a good fit, and you can see if the company's a good fit for you. Everyone knows it's hard to see how good a fit is going to be during the interview process, during a couple hour-long calls. So if you can actually work together on something before you make as much of a full-time offer, that's highly desirable. That said, not everyone's going to be able to do that. So if you've got somebody in a full-time job with a family, they're often not going to really be able to say, yeah, I'll do a 1 month no commitment kind of thing to just see how it goes. So in that case, sometimes we've done these as much as we can, but we also have just gone straight into full time where that made more sense. Yeah, so a big mistake we made multiple times is assuming that an accepted offer is a position that's filled. And this is pretty crazy, but recruiting doesn't stop at the signed offer. You'll need to make more offers than you think you'll need to make. You need to sell to the start date. So just because somebody signs the offer, so after somebody has signed our offer, we've in one case we did a reference check after they signed the offer. The offer was contingent on the reference checks, but we were trying to move so quickly we did it in that order in one case. And it turns out the reference checks exposed that they had an error on their resume where they had worked for not a year and a half, but just a few months at a company that we were really impressed with. And so that was a signed offer that turned into be not a position filled. We've had, after somebody's given us a verbal yes, they've gone back and talked to their family and they've realized that traveling twice a year to our team retreats actually wouldn't work for their family. And then, so that yes turned into a no. We've had yeses turned into no's because the current company goes and doubles their salary, crazy things like that. So you really have to sell to the start date. Even if they sign, so what I do is I send an email like a few days after they've signed or something. Here's a cool new feature we just launched. Here's a new open source package we just launched. Here's a technical blog post that will help you get to know about us more. Here's a link to the 5-star reviews of our product on Quora. Here's a video of our CEO giving a keynote. Just sell them all the way until they start. Don't assume that them signing the offer is a done deal. So that's happened many times. So I guess I can't reiterate enough. You'll probably need to make more offers than you think you will. And you'll see more why as well. So onboarding and beyond. So let's say they get to your start date. It's another mistake to assume that your hires will actually work out. So your work is not done because they start. Your work keeps going. You need to focus on post-hire success. So the first 1 to 2 months of onboarding is critical. Don't assume your new employees are happy after a few weeks in, or even just every week along the way. It's good to have a one-on-one with them and just say, hey, we've actually gotten a chance to really work with each other now, to get to know each other more. How are you feeling about this? Is this really what you thought it was going to be? Any surprises? Anything you don't like about this? So people, may not be happy after they start. So another, we've had people who say something like, after 3 months, I've learned more in the last 3 months than in the 3 years of my job before that. But this kind of pace of learning and this kind of pace of work is not for me. And so, they quit. We've had people who we thought were really great in the interview process, and then once we started working with them, they just weren't as good as we thought. They just weren't as senior as we thought. They would need another year of experience to really do what we needed them to do. So we've had to let them go. So it's very hard to tell in the interview process if something's really working, if somebody's really going to be a perfect fit. And so at the end of the day, some of your hires aren't going to work out. The sooner you can figure that out, the better. But the overall lesson here is between all of your offers not working out the way you think, and some of your hires not working out the way that you think, you actually need to be making more offers, more hires than you think you will. So if you really need 2 engineers, you probably are going to end up making 4 offers, something like that. At the end of the day, people get really surprised by this if they haven't done it before. Well, we only have the budget for 2. We can't make 4 offers. Yeah, we've never made an offer to somebody that we intended to fire or that we couldn't pay. But you will find that just the math, the percentages, not everyone works out. So you'll have to do more than you think. Don't, like, after you start hiring, after you've hired somebody, don't stop interviewing the other candidates. Like, you need to have fallback plans. Yeah, so learn from each bad hire. So if you've hired somebody and then within a few weeks you realize they don't work out, like, try to figure out what you could have done in the interview process to figure that out earlier, so that you learn from it, so that you iterate. Yeah, just make sure you're excited about somebody after 30 days, or fire them. More onboarding tips. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm just curious. Is this kind of thing the place where being remote has its advantages? Sometimes, like, if someone moves to where our company is in the city, it feels pretty crappy to fire them after 30 days. But,
Yeah.
staying in the same house.
So we were in person at one point, and we did a lot of trial periods back then, and that was really good, giving people clear expectations up front. With it, we're gonna work together for 30 days. Don't buy a house. Like, we'll see how it works. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's true. So let me try to wrap up, and then we'll hopefully have time for a couple questions. So, onboarding tips: have a well thought out onboarding plan ahead of time. I give somebody on their first day a Dropbox paper doc with week 1 a bunch of checkboxes, week 2 a bunch of checkboxes, things that they need to learn, do, people they need to talk to, things they need to ship. Hopefully they can ship something on day 1, even if it's small. Start with small, quick wins, but rapidly give them bigger and harder, more increasingly difficult projects. In their first few weeks, spend a lot of time with them, more than you will have to later on, but they need to learn everything about the company. They need to learn how you work. They need to know what you expect. If you're a remote team, if you can, like, if you're partially remote, have them come to your office for a couple weeks for onboarding. Like, have them do in-person time up front if you can, just because it's higher bandwidth. And then as your team is growing, as you've started to hire, like, people, and your initial processes aren't working anymore, hand over responsibilities. Find people that you can trust. Just hand over big areas of responsibility in the tech stack or the product. Have frequent one-on-ones with your team. Ask them, really, how are things going? How are you feeling? What are your personal goals? What do you want to be doing in a year? Things like that. One tip I have on just general, like, team management and one-on-ones is I use Apple Notes. I have an iPhone, the Notes app. I have one note per person, and then I just take notes in my one-on-one, kind of a rolling list by date, with the latest one at the top. And then if I think about something throughout the week that I want to bring up with them, feedback, a question for them, I'll just write that when I think about it on their note, and then when it's time for their one-on-one, I'll have the note up ahead of time, and I'll kind of review it. And yeah, so discuss feelings, challenges. These are good one-on-one topics. Yeah.
How do you get to the really deep one-on-one questions, like, without being like, please tell me the really concerning thing?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, setting the expectation for the one-on-one, that we're not, like, this is a one-on-one. We're not here to talk about, project status or something. It's not as a typical status project meeting. So, have good questions. I think questions like, what are your biggest challenges right now? Have I done something to offend you? How are you feeling? It's tough. I mean, not everybody will instantly open up. I think you sharing about some of your challenges is helpful to set the tone, something that you're worried about. Yeah, and also, like, doing these, probably some of the best one-on-ones I've had are the ones where we get together a couple times a year at team retreats, and I sit down with somebody over a dinner or something, and then can kind of really go deeper. But I think just explicitly, even if it's like once a month or something, explicitly just asking some of the, like, more particularly difficult questions that are more touchy-feely or more about their worries about the company or something is good. So some ways that we build camaraderie. So team retreats, we fly everybody in from all over the world into one place for about a week at a time, twice a year. That's a great time for just getting to know each other. Retrospectives, just as you've, like, finished a little project, having the team discuss what went well, what didn't go well about that, what did they learn, what do we want to try to do better next time. Show and tells, so this is like, in our weekly engineering meeting, we have people share like something that they built or some details about a call with the customer, or just like show your work. Try to like as your team grows, not everyone's going to intimately know what everyone else is doing, and so having times for show and tells is good. Another little thing I like to do is highs and lows. So this is a thing where in our weekly engineering meeting, we just quickly go around in less than 1 minute each. Everybody just says what their high, what their good part from the last week, and what their low, like what the worst part about their last week was. And it can be personal or it can be business. And that's been, we've started doing that for a few weeks now, and that's been a really interesting way to like quickly get a pulse on how everyone's feeling, what's going well, what's not going well. Yeah, and then as your team grows, you'll need to add some structure. You can't be managing everything yourself. Add project leads, add tech leads, add engineering managers. Yeah, and then just a couple quick notes about remote. So remote hiring opens the door to more candidates. Really great people are everywhere, and for us, you can stand out a lot more as a top company remotely than you can in the Bay Area. So there's 10,000 startups that are all amazing in the Bay Area, all trying to hire the same set of engineers. Remotely, there's not nearly as many, and you can be a much more top, impressive company and stand out that way. Remote hiring is cheaper than the Bay Area. You can pay people really well for where they live. You don't even have to base your pay based on where they live, but you can certainly hire more people remotely for cheaper. You'll just get way more candidates because people are applying from everywhere. This is a blessing and a curse, so you'll need good ways to screen through those candidates like we were talking about. Remote helps you retain employees longer. So I'm a good example of this. My wife and I decided it was time to move back to Florida, and because we had gone almost all remote at that point, I stayed on with my current role and kept doing what I was doing, even though I moved across from the Bay Area to Florida. Other people have moved for different reasons. Life happens. Also you can retain employees longer just because they're not commuting. They can have like happier, flexible work hours, locations. They avoid distraction-prone offices. And then a couple quick tips for working remotely. Team retreats, like I mentioned, we do a lot of Zoom video chats, Slack, just to stay in touch. People do not feel like they're out by themselves in the middle of nowhere. Asynchronous work is really helpful for just focusing on a project, getting your thoughts out in a document, and then getting feedback on it afterwards, rather than just brainstorming everything off the cuff without having time to think about it. And then another remote tip is to get out of the house, have a routine, get some exercise, have a home office with the door that shuts, or go to a co-working space. So we encourage our team that's working remotely to do these things. Otherwise, working remotely can be unhealthy for people. So this is my little 6-month-old. This is one of the reasons I like working from home, is I can go and see him during the day, have lunch with him, tickle him, whatever. So anyway, this for me and the rest of my team has been a huge benefit for working remotely and has led us to be happier. And finally, hiring does get easier over time. After you've done it, it does get easier. So that's it. Yes. Yeah, so the question was about salaries with remote teams. How do we come to the number that we do? So the first thing I ask everybody when I talk to them in an interview is simply, what are your salary expectations? What are you looking to make? We don't ask about past compensation, but just simply, what are you looking to make? That will give you some really good information. And so, there's different schools of thoughts on we should pay everybody the exact same amount for a certain role, no matter where they are in the world. That makes it really fair in some senses, but also unfair in other senses, because if you find somebody really great that you want to hire in Chicago, they're going to have a higher cost of living than the person who's also really great in Brazil or Poland or the Czech Republic. At the end of the day, we just try to find a number that works for who the person is based on their situation, what their expectations are. We paying Bay Area salary levels to everyone who's not in the Bay Area just doesn't make sense. Like one of the points of hiring remotely is that you don't have to do that. But if you only pay sort of the lowest level that you can find people at from any location, then you're going to miss out on good people from certain cities in the United States. So, it's a tough topic. We try to be as fair as possible, but that's we definitely start with kind of understanding what the person needs, what they're asking for. Definitely. So, just to kind of summarize the comment or the question, people often they don't vouch for themselves enough, or they provide a lower number than they may really be worth, and so we don't just like offer that number. We often offer well above that number with what we think that they're worth, but also we are much happier to hire somebody cheaper than we absolutely had to or absolutely could pay. And then give them, 6 months in, give them a big raise after we know that they're really good. So we're more interested in retaining really great people than starting out as high as possible. Question is around culture, whether it's the hiring manager's decision or a team decision. I do think the whole team should be weighing in, at least, particularly the people that are interviewing. Just an example is, what values do you have, what matters for you? So one kind of related part of that is remote. So for us, if somebody's never worked remotely, we're kind of cautious on whether or not remote work is not for every single person. And so we're cautious on that. We're looking for people that we feel like we're going to be able to trust, give high amounts of trust to, let them lead big projects, things like that. But yeah, culture, it's a really tricky thing. So I don't have maybe the best advice on exactly how to find good culture fit. Yeah. So how do you evaluate leadership potential? So I think it's what have they started themselves? Are they the kind of person that's seeming like they're interested in expanding their horizons? Are they just interested in coding, or have they ever started a company in college, or have they done any side projects, or do they express? I've just asked questions. I've asked some good questions, less on the technical side and more on, what do you do in a code review? How do you help an engineer who is going down the wrong track with a problem? How do you help them come up with how do you get them to where they need to be without just telling them what to do exactly? Just asking some of those more targeted questions around either what their goals are or what specifically they would do in certain situations. So what's a big lesson learned from hiring mistake? I mean, I think I tried to put as many of those in the talk as I could. Again, focusing too much just on the technical side and not on the overall person. Hiring only the number of people that we thought, we needed 2 engineers, so we made 2 offers. And then that's a really slow way to get 2 engineers because you have to keep repeating that.
Well, thank you so much, Phil, for coming to True University.
Thank you, guys.